Welcome to Top Shelf. My name is David Pierce, and this week we're talking about video games and TV and Netflix and Blu-ray players and weird interfaces and gestures like this and HDMI pass-through. But first, let's talk about the Xbox. 2013 really is shaping up to be the year of the next generation console. Even after Nintendo launched the Wii U last fall, we were still pretty much all waiting to see what Microsoft and Sony would do this year. Sony didn't actually have that much to say when they announced the PlayStation 4 in March, but this week at an event at its headquarters here in Redmond, Washington, Microsoft had a much bigger story to tell. They announced a new product, it's called the Xbox One, it's coming later this year, and there's kind of a lot going on with it. In gadget terms, 8 years is basically an eternity. But since its launch in 2005, Microsoft has done an impressive job keeping the Xbox 360 up to date with new games, new apps, a completely overhauled user interface, and more. The 360 was originally a pure gaming machine, but it became something more. It's Microsoft's Trojan horse into your living room, the company's attempt to create the one set-top box to rule them all. But 8 years is still a long time, and Microsoft needed more than just new software to compete in 2013, not to mention in 2021. From a hardware perspective, there are three parts to the One. There's the big, blocky black console, which looks like a VCR, but comes with massively upgraded specs. The One has an 8-core AMD processor, 8 GB of RAM, that's 16 times as much as the 360 if you're counting, plus a 500 gig hard drive and USB 3.0. It also has a Blu-ray drive, finally. Then there's the new Kinect, a smaller, also blocky rectangle that sits above or below your TV and watches your every move. Although now it tracks much more than your every move. It can track your eyes, your facial expression, your muscles, your fingers and toes, and even your heart rate. It can also do it in the dark and do it in high definition. It collects a lot more data than the last version and does it much faster and much more accurately. We were pretty blown away by it in the short time we had with the new device. Microsoft didn't leave the controller out of the upgrade cycle either. It has 40 improvements, we're told, and a few are obvious. It's smaller, with a better integrated battery, and its analog sticks are a little more textured. But the most obvious thing is the new impulse triggers, which is just a fancy name for making the control's triggers vibrate. When you fire a gun in a game, you'll feel the recoil. When you rev the engine, you'll jitter along with the car. It's cool from what we've seen, but it's a little much sometimes, and it's not exactly earth-shattering anyway. All that new hardware is used to power and control a lot of new Xbox software. There's a new UI based on Windows 8, plus an evolved Xbox Live that gives you more ways to find games and ways to upload videos of you playing them. There's a new Snap mode, which lets you pin Skype or other apps to the edge of the screen while you play a game or watch TV. Oh, and there's Skype for Xbox now too. But here's the thing about the Xbox One. It's really only partly a gaming machine. It's mostly some crazy hybrid of a set-top box, cable box, and Blu-ray player. The One can connect to all your home theater devices and even control your cable through its interface. You can say, watch ESPN to switch right to the channel, or ask, what's on HBO to see the guide for the channel you're looking for. We haven't seen much of the interface or spent much time with it, and frankly, we're worried about the whole HDMI pass-through setup that really doomed Google TV. But hey, anything's better than your cable box. Last, and weirdly kind of least for now, are the games. Microsoft showed us a half dozen or so new games, from FIFA and Madden to Quantum Break and Call of Duty Ghosts. The graphics look great, but they still look like video games. Quantum Break, a mix of game and TV show, might be the only really innovative one of the bunch. There are many more games coming at E3, so we're hoping to see more then, but for now it seems like gaming hasn't been upgraded quite as much as the rest of the Xbox experience. The Xbox One is coming out later this year, and we're certainly going to hear more about it as time goes on, like a price, for instance. But even now, it's clear that Microsoft is making big changes and betting big on the Xbox taking over your living room. Can it? We'll see. So we know a fair amount about the Xbox One now, certainly more than we know about the PlayStation 4, but there's still a lot to come and kind of a lot we don't know and a lot of questions we have. Certainly a lot of questions that these two have. Ross Miller, Nilay Patel, hello.
I'm drunk right
Welcome. Now. That's fine. I've been drunk since the Microsoft event. That's how I get through Microsoft events.
Dude, that's like days and days of
actually, I've been drunk since the Sony event.
Well, you spent the full day with Microsoft,
It was a day.
So it was like what? You got there like 8 in the morning.
No, we got there at 7 in the morning.
So it's 12 full hours.
And then it was raining because it's Seattle.
Of course.
And that was neat. And then we just stood outside near a tent for like 3 hours until they let us in. And we sat there for forever being like, we were probably here a little early.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. And I rented a minivan just so we could get there early. Like,
wow.
It was great.
But you did, like in those 12
hours. I was
hours.
like a Seattle soccer mom the whole time. But we saw a lot.
Yeah.
But we also kind of didn't see a lot, including like a lot of the rumors we thought were going to be there, a lot of things that we thought Microsoft would talk about that they haven't talked about. But so I've talked to you about this a little bit, Nilay, but I want to know what you think, just sort of broad strokes, Ross.
How were the pulse vibrating sensors on the controller? That's what I want to know.
It's like, I don't really know how to describe
it. It just
this.
sounds
it's like,
really dirty when they put it that way, the pulse vibrating
I just love the phrase impulse triggers. Like, I don't know, it just sounds like I have a gun and I'm like trigger happy. Like that's
you push it and then somebody vaporizes.
Exactly. But no, it's like, it's cool in the sense that like if you're playing like you're firing a gun, like it just vibrates in the right trigger, so you actually get like the recoil like you just pulled a trigger. Or like if you start up a car, it'll actually feel like you just started up a car and it'll sort of vibrate. But then at the same time, it's like
a car
I literally
that's controlled by a controller.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. You know, as you do, a future car. Exactly. But so it also I was like holding it at one point, and it was you could rev the car a little bit, and I just kept revving the car, and it was literally my whole arm was like I can't play this game anymore.
And
it was
the Kinect was like, ha ha!
Your heart beats through the roof.
We thoroughly trolled you with this game.
Pretty much. And then it turned out the best part of this was the demos were running on a PC, but they were using two Xbox 360s to prop up the monitor.
I saw that. That was
it was amazing.
One of them had like a broken, like a broken port store. Yeah, it was amazing.
It was pretty fantastic.
Well, I mean, that is the history of Microsoft is always to like run on a PC. The first Xbox, I believe the dev kits were like Macs. Like,
were they really?
Yeah.
Oh wow. It was like it'll be kind of like this.
The first Xbox was like a PC. The 360 was all power PC, which was Macs.
Wow.
Yeah. No, I just got nerdy.
That's pretty wild.
I understand what's going on here.
So I mean,
history lesson.
I mean, that's basically
Done.
what this is. It's like it's a PC. Like you're just running it on a computer in a weird box that looks.
Not
like
only is it a
VCR.
PC, it is a very similar, if not the same PC that the PlayStation 4 is using.
Yeah.
Like it's some kind of AMD system on chip. It might be the Jaguar. Do we know?
I believe it is. Yeah.
So
they're
it's basically
very
the
similar.
same
But
console.
we're gonna get to all.
So
that.
okay, good. Get to
No, go.
wherever
You
wanna
go wherever you want.
drive
It's your
this
show.
car.
Just take it.
No, so what I want to
Take
know
it.
is my big question is like
You pull your trigger, start your engine.
dude, I'm
impulse
revving
trigger.
right now.
Yeah.
My engine is revving. I'm shaking here as I go. It's ridiculous. But the Xbox 360 came out 8 years ago, right?
Yes.
And now we're here, and like a lot changed, but it kind of feels like a lot more is going to change in the next 8 years.
Well, so here's the question I wanted to ask was, at a basic level, if they're building with PC components, can't they just release a more powerful Xbox 2 years from now? And be like, we just put a faster AMD system on a chip
It's like
on
the
it?
Xbox 365 or whatever. Like that's what PC manufacturers do.
Yeah, it's what phone manufacturers do. I mean, like, I don't know why, and Sony could conceivably do it the same way. I mean, like, they're using these commodity components. The reason they couldn't do it with the old consoles was because they were developing their own chips, their own, like, architectures.
Well,
they're
even
not doing any of that
they
anymore.
where they could, they did it to some extent. Like they
Right.
they released 360s with more storage as time went on, for instance, just
Right.
to like because they were like, oh, people download things now.
Yeah,
we should
yeah.
give them a bigger hard drive.
I think
I mean,
that-
they added an HDMI port, right? I mean,
Right,
like,
yeah.
they did all kinds of crazy stuff
Right.
for the 360. I'm saying, like,
they never really talked
But you
about
could
it.
make that.
But
you
they
could
never-
fundamentally make it more powerful.
So they never
Yeah.
changed the internals before, but we saw a shift in the mindset because before the PlayStation 2, the PlayStation 1, these weren't just like consoles, like they were platforms.
Right.
And the platform and the hardware was one-to-one. And it wasn't until last year, like the last
And they were for
generation.
games. Like
They were
that was the
for
thing that
games.
they did. Yeah.
Yeah.
And last generation, they're like, you know what? We can just take this idea of a platform, we can expand it. Like, we're not going to change it every 4 years like they used to. We're just going to add a Kinect and say, wave your hands for a while.
Right.
This is new. But like the Xbox itself is now just a brand, it's a platform. I don't see why they wouldn't. now.
Well, but that's the weird thing to me is that it seems like the last, and this is super, generalizing, but it seems like the last 8 years were like software, right? It was like, let's watch TV on the internet, let's stream games. It was all about like different ways of doing stuff. Now it feels like, at least for right now, we're in this crazy hardware place where it's like we have watches, we have wearable technology,
Yeah.
we have all this stuff, and like
But here's-
that becomes a lot harder to just build on top of this sort of supercomputer.
But
that
here's the interesting thing, because
Microsoft did.
you say like it's a hardware time. When it was a hardware time last time, like we're talking years and years ago, it was I need the fastest processor, the fastest graphics card. Same thing with laptops
Well,
and
no,
TVs.
but so- but
That's gone.
That last time, it was literally these are the first HD consoles.
Right.
And in order to even like have this experience.
Yeah, I mean, wasn't the PS3 like the most powerful computer
Yeah, I mean,
you
they're
could
building
buy?
supercomputer rigs
Yeah,
of that thing
right.
because just to produce games at HD resolutions, which I mean, Sony until like 2 weeks ago, they're like the PS3 is 1080p because they thought they were so proud of it. Like,
Yeah.
just to do that, you needed the hardware. Now it's like the hardware is commodity, it's cheap, and you can move on beyond it. And because it's cheap and commodity and more general purpose than whatever is in the 360, the PowerPC, or whatever is in the PS3, you can do all this other computer stuff with it. And what I'm actually getting out of this is kind of Microsoft's new PC. In the same way that the iPhone and the iPad were Apple's new PC, like let's use kind of this commodity ARM stuff that's out there, let's take our existing operating system and scale it down to this new thing and create this new closed environment.
Right.
It's Windows. I mean, they're running Windows on the thing,
Right.
and it's this closed thing. They're, the games are effectively like they have their own app store with the Xbox stuff, Xbox Live stuff. It's like you have the disc, you still have to pay and download, whichever. I mean, it's if you look at it as these are PCs, And what they're really doing is they're changing the way a living room PC operates, and they're sliding it in
Instead of
under
like
the
a Mac
Xbox
Mini, it's
brand.
this other thing.
Then their opportunities to do stuff in the future are wide open.
Well, so let's talk about that. So we have presumably what, 6 months, say, before all of these things are going to be out on the market.
Yeah.
So what I want to know is like, what do the next 6 months look like, and then what are the next, I don't know, 8 years before the Xbox 2 comes out?
Right.
Like where do we? Let's start with
Xbox
6
2,
months.
It's a good troll.
It's gonna be great. Yeah.
Good undercover troll.
Xbox 2. Yeah, thank you. So where are we in the next 6 months? Like what does Microsoft have left to show us? Games obviously is one of the big things.
Tons
but like,
and tons of games.
Yeah, but is that it? Like have they sort of played their hand?
I think they need to. They showed us some games, right? And they were games. They're video games. They need to show us developers doing stuff with all that Kinect functionality.
Right.
They need to show us developers doing stuff with whatever half-hearted TV thing that they've built. They need to show us. They need to show us the same thing that that when Google puts out a new version of Android or Apple puts out a new version of iOS, we're like, that's great. Here are some features.
Right.
The developers have to come in and use the features and build applications that make them interesting.
Yep.
And Microsoft is in the same place. And I think more so than Sony is, because Sony came out of the gate, game demo after game demo, right? Put the hardware in second place, and you don't even need to see it.
Right.
Here's a controller. This is the thing that you're going to interface with. And here's what we've given developers. And look at all the games they made.
And it's actually even harder because if you look at like an Apple thing, like you can just have an iPhone 5, you still have the legacy of apps that will always work.
Right.
And when you see these new generations, like the backwards compatibility is ultimately a non-issue. They don't care.
Right.
They can't. It's like a technical hurdle that's just not worth the time. And so it's kind of a reset. Like I don't have any loyalty to Microsoft now because none of my games are there. I still have my 360. That's enough.
Or to Sony. Like to be honest, I own a 360, but I like once a week wind up debating buying a PS3 because I have this giant stack of PS2 games I really want to play, and you can't find a PS2 anywhere anymore.
Yeah, I was going to say, but
Well, you can't buy a PS3.
I know,
I bought my PS3 the day they announced they were killing backwards compatibility.
Yes.
And I went on eBay and I bought an old one.
Nice.
And
Well,
I
that's
now
kinda
use
what I'm
it
getting
almost
at, is, like,
exclusively as a Blu-ray player.
Why would they kill backwards compatibility? This is sort of a tangent I'm on here, but like that pisses me off. It's like I have all these great games that I've paid a ton of money for, and I'm
Because you
not
still have
done
a 360.
using.
on a technical level and on a perception level, because on a technical level, obviously, it's just so hard to try to get the
No,
same architecture.
Is it so
I get
hard?
that, I guess.
I mean,
right,
really,
they're
like-
they could do it.
I'm not
just
going to
don't
figure the math of it,
want
but
to.
it seems like it's not the only. They're not the only ones saying like this is a tough thing to do.
Right.
But on a perception level, let's be honest. Everyone's mad that it's not backwards compatible,
Right.
but ultimately, people don't give a shit. Like
I guess
what,
that's-
no,
yeah.
and they give a shit now because it feels like a big fu to the fans.
But the day it comes out,
Right.
people will forget.
But like the first 6 months of the PS3, you played PlayStation 2 games, whatever. But you also had your PS2 next to you. Now,
True.
You've had that stack and you've not touched it.
God, my PS2 is so broken.
And like,
it's so upsetting.
PlayStation 2 is like one of the best consoles ever in history.
Absolutely.
No one's playing games with it now.
Right.
And the online community, if they were there,
Don't they still sell it? I think they still sell it.
I think they finally stopped selling it after a while.
As of not that long ago.
this is what I'm saying. Like once you're on the PC architecture and you're in the PC cycle,
Right.
maybe this question goes away forever.
Right.
Right. Maybe the next Xbox actually comes out next year.
Yeah.
Right. And it's 1.5.
The Xbox 2.
Xbox 1.5. Right. And it's just a little bit faster. And they can.
Oh god, they're gonna start going to like dot updates where it's like
Well, no, but,
Xbox
I mean, like,
1.1.1.
if you can do it with PC games, where a PC game can come out and run the best on one system and run a little bit crappier on your old system, but still run.
Right.
You can definitely do it. I mean, this is a PC running Windows, right? Like,
Right.
Yes.
Ultimately, there's no reason they won't be able to do something like that. Whether they will, I mean, that's wide open.
Right.
But, and I think that's like those are the questions for them to answer in the short term, right? Is what is the platform cycle for this thing?
Yeah.
How is the TV integration going to work? Like, will it change over time? I mean, that stuff to me is like they've given some hints of it, but they haven't explained anything about how it's really going to work. Like, what is their strategy for mobile? Like, it's not there.
Yeah.
Like they have a phone platform, they have a tablet platform.
Right.
Well, so it's
None
it
of
seems
that
like,
stuff is connected to the Xbox.
It seems like Smart Glass is
Yeah.
what they're trying to make that platform, and it's like. To be honest, my only actual experience with Smart Glass is that every time I go to watch Game of Thrones on my 360, the screen before I can hit play tells me you should watch this with Smart Glass. I'm like, I don't want to do that, and then I move on. But like that, like Sony has this big, rich sort of platform agnostic play, and Microsoft just seems to have ignored it, which is weird because they have all this stuff too.
Well, I think Smart Glass is like, it's great, but it doesn't. I think like just the hurdles to using it are they vastly outweigh the benefits of having it.
Right.
Beyond like I'm gonna type in a text field, which is like great, you know.
Yeah.
But they haven't come up with some like the Kinect. They came up with all these compelling reasons that you'd want to use Kinect. And a little bit later in the Kinect's life cycle, everyone stopped using the Kinect because those reasons were novel, but they weren't great.
Right.
And so outside of like voice
just didn't work
controls
that
and just like
Yeah.
batting at the TV, like I never do any of that stuff.
But I remember there was a football game you could like, if you like bent down and went
Yeah.
like this and then went like this, it would like hike the ball, but it would only do it like 40% of the time. And the rest of the time you're just like,
Yeah. I think it was one of the fours was like you can look around a little bit in
Yeah.
the car, like, but whatever.
Yeah. So the new Kinect, like maybe that'll enable some of this stuff, but they have that problem with Smart Glass, which is, okay, well you've kind of connected it to this phone,
Right.
but you don't have a real, like Xbox Live on Windows Phone is a hilarious joke. It doesn't
you
exist.
just get like your avatar. And
Yeah, it doesn't
that's
exist anywhere else. Those games don't talk to the games on I almost called it the PC. Those games don't talk to the games on the console. I think this is the short term. Like Sony's made this play, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And Sony has to do the opposite thing. It's funny that they've now positioned themselves so opposite to each other.
Yeah.
Sony has to tell us all about the platform and the TV stuff and all the stuff and the hardware. Microsoft's done all that. They have to tell us about how they're going to take all of this hardware that they've introduced and build software on top of it to connect all of it, and then ultimately show us some games.
Yeah. Well, okay, so let's look, maybe not 8 years, because that's sort of ridiculous, but like 2 years from now, or like 3 years from now, how does Microsoft win? Like, what if you're Steve Ballmer or Don Matrick or whoever, and you're the dude in charge, like, where are you going in the next 2 years? Both of you, I'm curious.
I just talked. You have to talk.
I know. I'm thinking like it's because there's the thing like if Sony plays it smart, if Microsoft's doing smart, they have the same video options.
Right.
And like these are third-party services. People aren't going for Microsoft movies or Sony's, selection.
Yeah, it's going to be Netflix and Hulu and HBO.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
like,
And that's everywhere. And
Crackle.
it's not third-party
Gotta
titles as
love
much
Crackle.
anymore because if it's the same architecture, the ports are going to be easy.
Right.
So unfortunately, the solution is going to have to be like just like I think exclusives. I think you're actually still going to have to win on games, which is ironic because that's the thing you're not doing as much with this anymore. Because last generation is like, well, we have Kinect, which is great, and Sony's like, I got a wand, you can wave this, and the games you made for one didn't necessarily work for the other.
Right.
You know, that's a non-issue, and everyone's got some kind of motion or voice control, whatever you call it. So they've kind of leveled the playing field. So I'm not sure what it is.
Okay.
I don't think it's
Do you think it's Kinect? I mean, I feel like to me that's the thing that keeps jumping out at me is like they've made the Kinect so good and so almost like overly powerful at this point. Like it seemed none of the games they talked about the other day had anything to do with Kinect. They're just like games you play with a controller.
Right.
But like, whatever, 5 years from now is Kinect, are we gonna have thrown the controller away and like everything we do is Kinect? Even if you like stand there and go like this with just nothing, and Kinect just like knows and figures out what you're doing.
That can like I hate that kind of stuff because like it's like the uncanny valley of input devices. It's like you can do this to steer, but you're not holding anything.
Right.
Or I can swing a sword, but like I'm not
There's, like, the
hitting
Wii
anything. I'm just going
accessories where
right
you, like,
through it.
Steer a fake wheel that was $50. Yeah.
Like at some
It's a good
point,
wheel.
Yeah, it's
Strong wheel.
It's a very good wheel.
No, I mean, like, I think the Kinect stuff that's Microsoft's long term. And if you talk to them, like, anyone at Microsoft, and you get them talking about natural user interface, and this is like from their executives to like random when I talk to their PR people or when I talk to like their lawyers, like we love natural user interface. The lawyers just want to patent it all. But they're
Including the phrase natural user interface.
yeah, Nilay.
We own that.
They love it.
Nilay.
Can't get enough of it.
I've just gotten used to GUI and now.
Nui, man.
It's all
It's
Nui,
good
man.
stuff. No, I mean, that's where they're going. And I think their vision of you walk into your living room and it's like space age and you can like talk to the TV and it does a bunch of stuff.
Like the Illuma Room stuff too.
yeah,
It's, like,
right.
And then
wild.
like we're going to, I think that will be the Kinect for the, the mid-cycle kicker that they call the Kinect for the 360. I think the Illuma Room will be
Interesting.
that for the
and
Xbox
that
One.
is also like that is the thing that Microsoft's pushing that Sony isn't. Sony's like we've got a new camera and it's motion, but it's great for games. I gotta be honest, I use the Kinect now and I still use it for voice all the time. I'll run to the kitchen, Xbox pause. I'm totally sold.
Really?
Yes.
That seems totally insane to me.
No,
I
my-
can't get used to
never
talking
my
to that.
neighbors-
Like I still feel weird pulling out my phone and saying
no.
something to Siri. Like
And it barely works. My neighbors must hate me because they probably just hear through the hall. Xbox pause. Xbox fucking pause. That works. Actually.
It should know. No matter what you're doing,
Yeah.
you just start screaming, it should pause.
So
It's like, do you need a minute?
It's like I'm sorry.
Time out.
not only does
Let's
Microsoft
not talk for 5 minutes.
So not only does Microsoft like have the technology, maybe Sony's like almost getting there with its new iToy, but like Microsoft, that's what it wants. And I think if that's the perception it's giving, like we want entertainment and we just want to be able to just talk. Don't pick up a controller, don't worry about your smartphone. Just say something.
So you think voice is really like the ball game here? That's where we go next.
No, I think voice is great, and I think it's useful, but I think there's just too much, as a primary interface, there's too much mystery to it.
What do you mean?
I think if you have an Xbox that has multiple input sources and like apps and a browser and TV and games, there are too many ways to go, and it's not going to help you get there if you're just talking at it.
Too many ways to go, like you don't know what to say to your TV, basically.
Right. I think it's too mysterious of an interface.
But I think we're in the halcyon days. And you gotta remember too, like Siri.
Halcyon. This is the halcyon. It's coming right now.
This is my 8th grade vocabulary.
I had a computer
really not well defined.
All the time, what the hell that meant.
No, but like, okay, what do you use Siri for?
Nothing.
No, you set the alarm with it, and that's it.
Yeah, but I did that already. I was like every weekday, 7:30 a.m., and then it was done.
But I'm happy. Like that's all I want. I don't need it to do everything. I just need to do things that make no sense for touch. And that's the thing with Xbox too. I don't want to find the controller when I want to pause the thing. I just want to pause the thing.
I feel like turning on is useless though. Like I don't need to, like if I'm sitting down, I can like push a button.
No. Actually, I'm happy about that. I don't want to look for the controller and then use voice the rest of the time.
We're at the point in voice where we were with touch before the original iPhone, right? Which is everybody knew what bad touch interfaces were like. And they were terrible, and the iPhone came out, and everyone was like, this is going to be terrible. Because they were all uniformly terrible. And right now, everyone's experience with voice interfaces is not so much Siri, it's like robot calling menus.
Yes.
Where you just scream at it and hit 0 until like a human being who can understand you.
There needs to be a 0 on the Xbox
and
remote. It's like, I give up, take me home.
Yeah, and it's called controller.
Yeah.
Like that's the 0 of the Xbox voice interface, right? And I think most people are going to be like, I don't want to deal with this. Like, this is still at that level. And that's where the Kinect is for me right now. It doesn't always understand me in terms of voice. And I just pick up the controller and use it. I think they need that kind of transformative leap in the technology and how effective it is before people accept it the way people accept the touch.
It's controller plus. It's like there are things that we've just gotten used to using controller for that actually really suck.
Right.
Like using as a keyboard, like joystick left, joystick right, I gotta find the letter B. Just say the thing I want. I want Bob's Burgers.
When it screws up, what are you gonna do?
They just delete a little bit.
Again, that's like I think that's
pick up the controller and fix it.
No, not again. Bob's Burgers.
Yeah.
But no,
that's why.
Okay, I'll watch Hell's Kitchen.
But that's why I think Microsoft, like that's what they're doing. I think that's the most interesting is they're saying like instead of let's make the controller and console like really great and as good as possible and let's make the graphics great, they're like let's expand how we do this. And that's where Kinect comes in. That's where Luma Room comes in. They're like, why even deal with your TV? Let's just blow it up beyond that.
Right. And you're seeing a ton of companies do it. It's not just like Valve is like doing like we're at a point where like graphics are fine. It's marginal.
Right.
So Valve's like, well, let's test your heartbeat. Like that's apparently what they're testing. Kinect can apparently do it. Yeah. Like the Luma Room thing is like fascinating to me. It feels like a novelty, sure, but it's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be fascinating if that were the mid-cycle refresh in like 3
the
years.
stuff that they're showing off with it. I mean, that is. A, you'll need the additional graphics horsepower to make that happen, and B, that's like you can really change the gaming experience if you take it from beyond the TV to the entire room.
Well, okay, then I think we're going to go through if it does ever take off, and I think the problem is just like with 3D, you have to do something else, like put glasses on a projector there. But I think what would be interesting is not let's expand the screen. You have a 106-inch TV, you have a 20-inch TV. Let's give you more space. Right. That's never going to look good because you have to build your living room around that. But when we were talking before the show, like setting a mood, like just make the whole room black and white. Yeah. Or make it look like cartoony or whatever. Like set some kind of color tone and some kind of like emotion to go with what you're seeing.
Right.
Like I think they just need to be abstract. We're gonna get this uncanny moment. Again, hypothetically, if it ever does take off.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, Ross, Nilay, thank you both very much. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna invent an Luma Room for my TV now. BBC's doing it, so I can do it. That's how I feel. So there's a lot we still don't know about the Xbox One and the PS4 in particular. But in a lot of ways, where we're going with the next generation of consoles is kind of set. So let's look at really where we are and where we go going forward. You can now play games on your phone, on your tablet, or on your refrigerator, but the best and most powerful experience is still on a console. And 3 companies still dominate in the living room: Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft. All 3 have shown off the devices that they hope will carry them for years to come, or at least shown off some information about them. So where are we now? Who's winning the next generation console war? To start with, the Wii U is really kind of its own thing. It has a small hard drive and a slower processor, but instead of offering limitless power and incredible graphics, Nintendo stuck with the tactic that made the Wii so popular: get super immersive and crazy experiential. The Wii U's huge gamepad is its gimmick, building a 2-screen experience into the console itself. It's fun, too, but it can be confusing where you're supposed to look, and not every game is well suited to having such a gigantic controller. The Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, on the other hand, are more directly competitive and more normal. They're both big consoles with standard controllers, plus peripherals that promise to track your body and respond to your voice. Both come with 8-core AMD processors, 8 GB of RAM, PC-like graphics processing, a Blu-ray drive, USB 3.0, and Wi-Fi. The Kinect on the one has a 1080p camera, while the PlayStation 4i is only 720p, but both are wide-angle and come with powerful microphones and voice recognition. They both offer plenty of personalization, totally revamped interfaces, and near-instant booting. We don't know too much about the PS4 console itself, but from what we're hearing, it'll be more or less just like the Xbox One. They both have different software, but also fundamentally different visions of how you'll use a console in the future. The Xbox One is all about TV and seamlessly integrating all the parts of your home theater system. One voice command is all it takes to switch from TV to games to music to Skype and back again. The box is the hub, it's the center of the Xbox universe. On the other hand, the PlayStation 4 is really more of a service than a box. You'll be able to access games in the cloud, download them to any supported tablet or portable console, and keep your games saved and accessible no matter where you want to play. They have plenty in common, obviously. All three consoles come with exclusive games, access to Netflix, Hulu, and plenty of other services, though the Wii U definitely does lack a bit in this department. There's still time before the PS4 and Xbox One come out, and we're going to find out a lot more soon at E3, but it looks like we're going to be in for one big battle. Do we want one box to rule them all, or do we want to be able to access all our games and services from any place on any device? That's it for our show. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks to Ross Miller and Nilay Patel for being here. We're taking a couple weeks off, but we'll be back from E3 in LA with lots more on Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, and basically every other gaming company on the planet. We'll see you then.